Everybody, welcome to tonight's show, guys. We have some breaking news for you today. Donald Trump's sentencing is actually going to happen. They tried to delay it, but SCOTUS, the Supreme Court, came out and said, nope, it's going to happen September 18th, which actually happens to be my birthday. But they're going to sentence him over the New York hush money trial over the 34 felony counts. Now, they're going to still try to delay it till after the election, but we'll see what happens. Also, this is insane news. We already have members of Congress that say that they're going to go after Trump, even if he wins, to not allow him, to stop him from becoming president using the 14th Amendment. Now, I've got that pulled up, so I'll go over what they're going to try to use against him, the specific wordings, but this is crazy. Jamie Raskin is saying that Congress will stop Trump from taking office no matter what. So I'm like, wow. There were Americans that were injured in a suspected rocket attack at the alasad air base in Iraq. This is all coming from the Israel-Iran war. We've got Josh Hawley, who literally rips the Secret Service and all those people having to deal with Trump's protection, because we got more leaked audio today, whistleblower audio, that they admitted that they saw the shooter, they saw what he was planning to do, and they lost him, and they still allowed Trump to go on stage. This is insane, what has come out today. Also, Kamala Harris is choosing her VP, and a lot of people are saying that it's going to be Mark Kelly because he's very tough on the border, and they're saying she actually needs that because she did nothing with the border, even though she was the border czar. So, just want to say thank you to everybody that is watching. If you're a subscriber, thank you for being subscribed. If you're not, please hit that that subscriber button so we can serve you every day with the top news. Also, want to say thank you to all of our members of the channel. Our newest member, Elizabeth Geiger Fernstein Seal. I know I butchered that, but thank you so much for being a member of the channel. And thank you to everybody that gives a super chat or donation to the channel. It blesses us so much, and we just thank you so much for that. And we do want to say, if you don't mind clicking the thumbs up like button right up. Hold on, I got to get it all in full view. Right there. It really helps to grow the channel. We'll start off this episode with some fireworks, guys, because we got some bombshell news for you today. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. You're not going to want to miss this. Check it out.
This news breaking moments ago, the U.S. Supreme Court now refusing to delay former President Trump's sentencing in his New York criminal trial until after the election. Trump says he did nothing wrong and plans to appeal the conviction on all 34 counts of falsifying business records. He is facing possible prison time or a fine at the sentencing, now set for the 18th of September, so a little more than a month from now. We'll keep track of that from here. Meanwhile, you got another...
So think about it. We've just heard now that SCOTUS has denied Trump the ability to delay his sentencing. So not only is Trump in the middle of this campaign, in the middle of the debates, in the middle of trying to win an election, he's still going to be sentenced. And whether that may include prison time or huge fines, we will see. But we're going to report it. Let me know your thoughts and comments on this. In the polling, I'm asking, should he even be charged with anything that was put against him with how they tried to do it? But at the same time, this is blowing up X right now. This is literally #1 on the trending of what's going on with this guy coming out and saying that they're going to stop at nothing for Congress to keep Trump from taking office. Is this right? Are we living in a constitutional republic that is by the people? Or are these politicians trying to control the entire game? Check this out, what he has to say.
What can be put into the Constitution can slip away from you very quickly. And the greatest example going on right now before our very eyes is Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which they're just disappearing with a magic wand, as if it doesn't exist, even though it could not be clearer what it's stating. And so, they want to kick it to Congress. So it's going to be up to us on January 6, 2025 to tell the rampaging Trump mobs that he's disqualified. And then we need bodyguards for everybody in Civil War conditions, all because the 9 justices, not all of them, but these justices who have not many cases to look at every year, not that much work to do, a huge staff, great protection, simply do not want to do their job and interpret what the great 14th Amendment means. And I'm glad that Sherilyn's creating her new center so we can bring...
Can you believe this? He literally just said, on January 6, 2025, we're going to tell Trump that he's not going to be the president because of this one part right here. And I want to show this to you. If you've never seen the 14th Amendment, you can go to constitution.congress.gov. They have the 14th Amendment here. What he is talking about is section 13. Section 3. So what he is saying is that it talks about any representative, president, vice president, civil, military, United States, or members of Congress. It says right here, this is what they're talking about. Shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. Trump did not do that. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section. How in the world was it an insurrection, which is essentially a coup of trying to take over the government, if everybody that showed up, nobody had any weapons? How are you going to try to take over the government with no weapons? At the same time, too, it says, or rebellion against the same, or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. Nowhere did Trump partake of any of the piece of what they're trying to go against him for. This is what that guy was talking about. But even the fact of the matter is he is saying that even if Trump wins the election, that him and Congress on January 6th are going to try to keep him from taking office. This is not how the United States should be running. It's not how the our founders of the United States designated for things to be. And this is where you have politicians that are just trying to have their own way. What bothers me is that whenever there's things that are truly going on that need to be addressed, that we're not addressing, especially like the fentanyl crisis, the border crisis, the foreign wars, we're dealing with all these things. And guess what? Tucker Carlson has a phenomenal word to say over what's actually going on and what needs to be addressed. Check it out.
Lawmakers stepping over the bodies of their fellow citizens ODing on drugs to go cast votes to send money to some foreign country. We've lost more Americans from drugs in the past 4 years than we lost in World War II. Does anybody care? And do you hear a single word?
Right there. We've lost more Americans in the past 4 years from drugs than we did in all of World War II. That is a huge, huge number. And guess where most of them have come through? The southern border, which Biden and Harris literally are being forced by the courts because the Attorney General, Andy Bailey, he won in his fight against them because they stopped the border wall that Trump was building on day one. And it took 3.5 years, but he finally beat them in court. But it's insane that the most drugs that have come through into the country have come through the southern border, which Biden and Harris stopped from building. They should be held accountable.
From Washington about doing anything about it. We know where the drugs are coming from. We know the supply routes. The U.S. military spent billions bombing the Ho Chi Minh Trail. You don't see our commander-in-chief suggesting that we use our military to protect our country or the lives of its citizens. No, that's for Ukraine. And it's too much, actually. It's too insulting. It's a middle finger in the face of every American. It's a very clear statement, which is unmistakable. And that is, we don't care about you.
That's literally what we're experiencing right now. When we see all the deaths that have happened from all the drugs that have come over the southern border, where has the president been? Where has Vice President Kamala Harris been? Nowhere. But yet, her whole hype over her becoming the new presidential candidate is about to burst. Check this out.
Kamala Mania party is about to get crashed. Right now, Vice President Harris is riding a wave of fawning media coverage and favorable polls as the press helps sugarcoat her radical and dangerously liberal track record. But Barack Obama's former advisor, David Axelrod, has some bad news for Democrats who think that this Harris honeymoon will last forever.
You know, there's a lot of irrational exuberance on the side of on the Democratic side of the aisle right now because there was despair for some period of time about what November was going to look like. Now people feel like there's a chance, but it is absolutely Trump's race to lose right now. He is ahead, and he is ahead in most of the battleground states. Everybody should be sober about that on the Democratic side.
And you can expect Kamala mania to fade as more Americans realize what a disaster she is on the issues. Harris has been flip-flopping like crazy on her support of far-left policies like abolishing ICE, banning fracking, and eliminating private insurance. And it's leading Democrats to come up with some ridiculous excuses.
What do you think that voters should think when she's reversed herself on several issues just in the last 4 years?
I think that voters should think that she's a human being who learns new things every single day.
So no concern about...
Let me tell you this. If you're 12 years old, you're maybe even 15 years old, and you have an idea, and then maybe 5 years later you change your mind. Why? Because you're becoming an adult. You're maturing. The ideas and principles and things that Kamala Harris was for 4 or 5 years ago, even 6 years ago, she is 60 years old right now. That means she would have been 54, 55. She's already a mature adult. She already has her point of view. She already made her stance, and it doesn't make sense that they're trying to protect her when she is a mature adult and she's made her decision on what she wants to stand for. And now they're trying to backtrack and say that it's okay because she changes her mind. No. When you're that old, your principles are in state. Your values are in state. Your morals are in state.
Flip-flopping?
No concern about flip-flopping. This is our country changes every single day. The conditions of our country changes every single day. The vice president has been consistent in her values, and there are lots of different ways to solve the challenges that are in front of us.
All right, Jesse, should we attribute Kamala's flip-flopping to A, political opportunism, B, her effort to become a Republican, or C, her just being a human being and learning about life?
D, all of the above. I had a little irrational exuberance last week when Greg was gone. Anybody but Greg was sitting in that chair, and it was fantastic. Same thing with Biden. It's anybody but Biden, and the Dems are excited. This Democrat machine, I am in awe of. They can take a woman who was probably less popular than Dick Cheney, and now she's the pantsuit messiah. This is someone they tried to rip off the ticket a year ago, and now she's a cultural phenomenon. I bet if I switched parties and registered as a Democrat, identified as African American,
hear, hear,
and tapped Harold Ford Jr. as vice president, and just said all the things I've been saying on the five, I'm a human being, and I've listened and I've learned, I might probably do well against Trump in the battlegrounds. That's how powerful this machine is. I know Harold Ford Jr. likes to give people the benefit of the doubt, so let's just give her the benefit of the doubt. Let's just say she did listen and she learned because she's a human being. Well, she stopped listening and learning after she got into the White House because we've been telling her to close the border. We've been telling her to stop spending money. We've been telling her to stop putting boys in girls' locker rooms. She hasn't listened at all. She hasn't learned from any of that. And not only do you have to listen to be a leader, you have to lead. When has Kamala Harris led anything? Donald Trump led on tariffs, border, China, NATO. You can look at his website right now. He has a vision for what he wants to do. You go to Kamala Harris's website right now. She doesn't even have a policy proposal if she gets elected.
Wow.
So, Harold, why is Kamala relying on surrogates to get her message out?
Good to be around the table. Hope you had a good weekend. I'd say a couple of things. I like the pantsuit messiah thing. That was good.
Thank you.
I'd say a couple of things about what she's doing. And some of it I've said in the past, and I think it applies to both candidates. Laying out a vision for the future is how you win a presidential race, how you win big political races, gubernatorial races, if you're in one of the big states, for that matter, any state Senate races, but certainly when you're running for president. George Wallace was a Democrat, was a Alabama governor who was a segregationist. He campaigned in 1968 on basically codifying that I couldn't marry my wife because she's white. He said he didn't believe that blacks and whites should be able to get married. He believed that blacks had a certain place in society. Before he died, you know who hugged him? Jesse Jackson hugged him. Andy Young hugged him. He made a change. I think when people make changes, the question you're really getting at, Justin, I take you seriously when you talk about these things. She's got to prove that she's not just ambitious. She's got to prove that she's authentic. I think people can change. You got to give people.
Let me know in the comments, is she really changed, or is she just trying to get votes or appeal to a broader base so that way she can win the presidency? Also, if you don't mind clicking the thumbs up like button, it really helps to grow the channel right there. Thank you so much for your support.
Space to change, because that's the only way South Africa turned out the way it turned, and Mandela became president, because people changed. I hope people in the Middle East can change. The jury is still out on a lot of those issues. But in our political system, people jump from being Democrat to Republican just as President Trump did, and I think many people believe he is more Republican than he is Democrat if he's not an altogether a Republican. But I don't dismiss your point lightly.
Yeah, but
so
Vice President Wallace Harris didn't change his opinion on everything when he was running for president the next time. It was on his deathbed.
Thank God, no, it was before he died.
Yeah, right. So Kamala Harris is not on her deathbed.
Well, I'm a Christian. I give people an option. I wish he had changed sooner. Maybe he was changing sooner. And when he died, the question is, do you believe in those things? Did he believe in a great America? Your bigger point is this. She in a debate is going to have to explain what accounts for these changes. J.D. Vance will have to answer in his debate what accounts for your changes. And if they're authentic, if they're believable, if they're credible, then American people will believe them.
But the question is, why is she relying on surrogates? Why isn't she doing it herself?
But I think she's been out there, and she will continue to be out there. Look, I think
she hasn't done a presser in 15 days.
She should. I agree with you. She should.
Okay.
I agree. Forgive me. You're absolutely right. She should.
Thank you. Okay, Katie. How is it that Trump's lead has pretty much been diminished, and how do Republicans come back from this mania?
Well, first, Kamala Harris, people do change. They change their positions, but she's using these surrogates and these anonymous sources for her campaign through the media, who is happy to accommodate, by the way, to say that the position has changed, but not explain why it has changed. And these aren't just changes from, like a little tiny, minuscule operation or change.
Huge.
It's massive 180 changes that we're talking about here, from banning fracking, banning electric or oil-powered cars, really big swings. They're not just a little tinkering around the edges when it comes to these issues, and she's not explaining any of it herself. So that's one thing. The other thing, to your question about how Trump's lead has essentially not evaporated, but certainly gotten smaller. There's no doubt that Democrats have reset this race. That was their goal. They want to win. They want to beat Donald Trump. And President Donald Trump has to define Kamala Harris. He cannot allow her to define herself based on changes she's reporting anonymously through the press, and that don't actually reflect her record. Now, a lot of their ads have been doing that, but he can't get distracted by attacking Republicans in Georgia, for example. He should only be talking about the economy, Kamala Harris, and her record, which she is not speaking for himself. That's something they have to. He was very disciplined leading up to the convention. He should go back to that place.
All right, Greg, welcome back.
Thank you.
Did things surprise you when you got back? Anything in particular?
I don't know about y'all, but I love Greg's point of view. Because for one, it's so real. It comes with some humor, but it's just different perspective.
No, nothing really surprised me. Jesse's still here.
I'm surprised, too.
I know. It's amazing. I kept saying today's going to be the day he crosses the line. You know what? I think we're making a mistake when we're talking about changing opinions. You don't change when you change your clothes, you don't change your opinion. And for some people, it's no different than changing your clothes. Kamala Harris is an amorphous creature that conforms to whatever environment that best suits her. So one minute she could say, I'm going to bail out protesters, and the next minute she could say she's a prosecutor. She didn't have beliefs to begin with. So the idea that we're sitting here talking about, well, she changed her belief here, she realized, no.
She never had any.
To her, those aren't even part of her life. It's just, that's why she's laughing all the time. Because she's like, none of this stuff matters. Remember what she said about Joe Biden? When she said that I was the little girl in the bus, and then people said, why did you say that? She goes, it's a debate. So none of these positions that she takes are actually meaningful. She has no beliefs. She doesn't need any beliefs. She is no different than Joe Biden, selected to be slotted into this machine and do exactly what they're supposed to do to maintain the status quo. That's all it is. It's amazing that a month ago, that debate exposed probably the biggest political scandal in modern history, right? They covered up a president's dementia. Then 3 weeks ago, we had probably the biggest security breach in decades, an attempted assassination. And yet, without doing a thing, Kamala is the story. She's done nothing. She's said nothing, yet she is the story. That tells you that the machine is doing all of it. She's just a constant variable. It doesn't matter. She's having fun because she knows everything is taken care of, right? She's like a tourist in the backseat of a Vegas limo with a roadie Long Island iced tea heading to the casino to play with the house chips. Right? But the Republicans, and this is the key point, they have to show up, because the fact is, if you do not confront the Democratic Party with the dementia cover-up and who participated in it, which was her.
That is true.
She's going to get away with it. They were driving full speed into that story, and if the Republicans don't confront them and say, she was behind this, because she knew she would get the nomination. She knew she would get the nomination if this happened, if they covered it up. That's the story.
Good to have you back.
Can you believe that? That is something. There's so many things, guys, that they're not even bringing out in the news. Think about it. What happened to Hunter Biden? What happened to Joe Biden in this whole cover-up that, for one, they won't even try him for the classified documents case because he's too old and feeble and has a bad memory, but yet he's still the president. And then now he's come out and says that, oh, you know, things are just a little bit too much and I need to be a transitional president. I'm going to hand it off to Kamala, which, you know, they forced him to. And then at the same time, too, you're wondering, well, he's still president. Who is actually making the decisions for our country? Who is actually running our country? Because I don't know about you, I don't think it's Biden. If Kamala was to win, I don't think it'd be Kamala Harris. I think it's a group of people that we probably don't even know their names. They got a lot of money that are pulling the strings of these politicians. That's my take on it. Let me know your thoughts. We have some breaking news because more stuff has come out pertaining to the Trump assassination, which I'm telling you, Josh Hawley is about to rip them a new one for what they have found out. But I love him. He's such a pit bull. This dude is going to be a big player for the conservative Republican Party because that's what we need. We need people that aren't afraid to speak up and tell the truth like it is. Check it out.
Senator Josh Hawley's been speaking with these whistleblowers, and he joins us now. Senator, what have these whistleblowers been telling your office?
Well, what they've been saying, Jesse, is that this individual, the site agent, the lead agent, was known to the Trump campaign to be inexperienced, to be ineffectual, to be, frankly, incompetent at their job. Well, I'm also told by whistleblowers that on that day, she was not enforcing the normal security protocols. She was not checking people's IDs. She did not use Secret Service agents. Most of the agents there that day were not Secret Service agents. They were Homeland Security agents. And get this, Jesse, most of them had never worked a rally before. And yet this is who she chose to staff the event with, and she didn't train them or integrate them. From top to bottom, it was a total disaster. Jesse, it is a miracle, not only that Trump is alive, but that more good Americans were not killed. It's unbelievable.
You're saying that the site agent in charge of this security in Butler wasn't checking IDs? What do you mean? She was just letting people in?
That is what whistleblowers tell me, is that IDs were not checked to allow individuals into secure areas, Jesse. In other words, it was a total free-for-all. Whistleblowers portrayed to me a circumstance, a situation that was totally out of control, where people were milling around, including in what were supposed to be highly secure areas. Nobody knew who they were. By the way, it was also the lead site agent's job to make sure that the line of sight for where Trump was clear, that agents could see all angles. And she didn't do that. In fact, I'm told that the line of sight was obstructed, which means that agents from different angles couldn't really see around Trump, couldn't see potential dangers to Trump. This is pretty textbook stuff, Jesse. And what whistleblowers say to me is none of it was done properly. None of it was done by the book. And frankly, when you know all that, it's amazing more people weren't killed. This person needs to be fired, as does anybody who had leadership on that day.
This person is still doing security. They're still in charge of security for political events. Why aren't they sidelined and under investigation themselves?
This is exactly what the whistleblowers who are coming to me, Jesse, want to know. And in fact, we know that this individual is still doing all those things because the director confirmed it. He told me under oath that, yeah, this individual is still working events. In fact, he said still doing investigations. which raises the question, is she investigating herself?
Right.
I mean, this is insane. And I'll just say this, Jesse.
Sure.
Whistleblowers are coming forward from the Secret Service because they can't believe what leadership is doing. They cannot.
So what he just said, this is crazy. I want to reiterate this real quick. We have whistleblowers that are from the Secret Service that are saying that the person, the lead agent who was in charge, who screwed everything up, got Trump shot, got somebody killed, got other people injured, is still not fired, is still working events, is still a part of this investigation. Are you freaking kidding me? What is the cover-up that is happening right now with the Secret Service? There's no way in this world that this person should still be a part of the Secret Service after what happened. And they want to say that things aren't rigged towards Trump. They want to say that Trump is just, everything for him is just as fair as it is everybody else. Not even close.
Believe that the Secret Service is not taking action to clear out the rot, frankly. They're scared to death this is going to happen again. But we can't let it happen again. We've got to get the facts.
Was this site agent for Butler, was she one of these Cheadle hires? You know how Cheadle has an agenda. She just promotes people without merit. Was that person a person like that?
I don't know the answer to that. All I am told by these whistleblowers is that this individual was inexperienced, that she was known to the campaign to be, frankly, not very good at her job. They had concerns about this individual before the Butler rally. Again, when she was assigned to Butler, the campaign was worried. They thought, uh-oh, this has not gone well before, and my gosh, it didn't go well that day.
All right, well, I'm very glad these whistleblowers are speaking out to your office. Please.
And what's crazy is these whistleblowers are coming from the Secret Service. We've got more info about this because this is just blowing up so much right now that the lead agent is still not fired. Check it out.
We are learning chilling new details about communication failures surrounding the assassination attempt against former President Donald Trump.
Wow.
Encrypted radio communications reportedly revealing a local counter sniper actually warned they'd, quote, lost the gunman after they had sighted him with that rangefinder. Matt Finn is live at the Butler, Pennsylvania rally site with the latest on the investigation. Matt?
Emily, the acting director of the Secret Service now confirms that former President Trump's counter sniper team did not have direct radio communication with local police here in Butler on the day of the shooting. And a new Washington Post report reveals just how poor communication was between federal and local agencies. According to encrypted radio transcripts, on July 13th at 5:42 p.m., a local counter sniper here in PA said, just an FYI, we had a younger white male, long hair, lurking around the AGR building. He was viewed with a rangefinder sighting the stage. We lost sight of him. That message was apparently referencing the shooter, Thomas Crooks, who ultimately pulled off the near assassination of former President Trump while killing one man and injuring others. Now, there has been outcry over why no Secret Service workers have been publicly fired or suspended just yet. Here on the ground, I spoke with Republican Congressman Mike Kelly. This is his district in Western Pennsylvania, and he's on the special task force that is investigating the July 13th shooting.
American people have the right to know, and we have a tremendous responsibility to find out for them. I don't want to talk about innuendo where somebody said something to me or I got a secret note from somebody. We're going to do the deep dive that's necessary with the people that were actually on the ground, what they went through, and then how did you prepare for this?
Wow.
And Congressman Kelly is urging everyone to take a breath because he promises that task force will come to this site, and he promises the country that everyone who needs to be held accountable will be. Emily.
Matt, thank you. Kaylee, we've been talking about this the whole time. The colossal communication failures keep piling up, and all it does is underscore the colossal leadership failure of the Secret Service.
No doubt. Emily, that Washington Post report was stunning. We had been saying we need the transcripts of the radio communications. Well, the Washington Post got them. So at 5:42 p.m., local law enforcement communicated there was a guy with a rangefinder. Fine, you use a rangefinder in golf. Fine, you use it in shooting. You don't use it at a Trump rally.
Exactly.
The shooting took place at 6:11 p.m. So 30 minutes passed where there's this information about the rangefinder. Then we find out in this Washington Post report, the information was communicated into a command post that only contain local law enforcement. So what happened to what I've been told by Trump officials was the model for every single presidential event. You have a security center with the head of every law enforcement group in the same room. Did that not happen here? And then finally, we're told man with a gun, 30 seconds goes by, the message not communicated. Why? Because they didn't have enough time to call in on a cell phone. Why aren't you using radios? So many questions. Failure, to your point. Failure all the way around.
And you know, Harris, who didn't lose sight of him were all of those rally goers who had their cell phones trained on him and trying to get the attention of those in charge.
Yeah, we're supposed to see something, say something, but apparently when we say something, we don't get listened to. Yeah, that's not a good message. There's really only one question I have today for the leadership at the USSS. How many of the people that you're looking at who fell down on that day and where the failures actually happened are still on the job today? And what are they doing? Who are they protecting?
Wow.
I want to know where we have moved to with the people who are being most scrutinized. And do we have enough redundancy in our ranks to replace them while you finish your investigation? No, we don't, because you know what Kimberly Cheadle told us? They're 1,500 employees short under her watch. She knew she had positions to fill, so they were stretched. They were stretched. So even if they wanted to take some of these people out of the field, we don't have potentially the redundancy that we would need to keep people safe. And this isn't just about our candidates as president. These are about any of our elected leaders.
Exactly.
We know that the enemy wants to cause chaos, and so they are targeting us. And we have enough enemies around the globe now. We don't need a piece of paper that says, well, today is Trump and Iran's day. It's everybody all day long.
That's right.
So get ready.
That's right. And Guy, focusing on this particular point, which I feel is so disturbing, and it's the erosion of the relationship between the Secret Service via leadership and local law enforcement, because President Biden doesn't leave the White House without the support and the dependence on local law enforcement who bravely and steadfastly support the Secret Service all throughout the country, every day, all day, with all the protectees. And here we have leadership that's just been throwing them under the bus and trying to blame them for their failures.
Yeah, I think the locals felt scapegoated unfairly in the very early days when the now erstwhile leader was trying to sort of cast blame everywhere but on herself and her own agency. And it's sort of amazing because every time some new development comes out involving this incident and the near murder of Donald Trump on national television, I keep waiting to have a sense of, oh, okay, now I sort of understand why that happened. And yet each new piece of information makes it more unbelievable, less understandable. It's shocking how many different levels of failure there were here. It's like he hid the gun in advance. He did the flyover with a drone in advance. They spotted him, an hour in advance. They lost sight of him and radioed in. And somehow Donald Trump was allowed on the stage. At every step, this should have been stopped, and it wasn't.
Near murder of Donald Trump and the actual murder of Corey Compratore, Carly. And the other thing is, to everyone's points here, we need these answers right now, because right now there are many protectees under the protection of the Secret Service who thus far we've seen no leadership whatsoever made any change other than Cheadle.
It's so true. I feel like we have learned so much and nothing at all when it comes to what happened on July 13th. And when it comes to the communication issues between local police and Secret Service, you can't have everybody on the same radio channel, I am told, because that would be chaotic. But what you could do was have a local guy embedded with the Secret Service. So when they get the call, hey, we're seeing something suspicious, you could then communicate that much more effectively person to person with the Secret Service agent who could then go check it out or alert the local, the immediate detail around former President Trump or anybody that the Secret Service is protecting. So that's one thing. The other thing is we don't know anything about the shooter or a motive yet. And one of the reasons for that is because the social media is still encrypted. So I completely agree with Senator Lindsey Graham, who brought this up in the hearing last week when he said, there is an answer that's sitting somewhere out there. And because these apps are still encrypted, for a murderer, an assassin, he says, privacy to a point, but I mean, that is ridiculous.
And our enemies are watching all of this.
Yes, they are.
They're like the Borg, they're learning.
Yeah, I think this is the thing. Let me know your thoughts, because I'm 100% in favor of privacy to the highest extent, no matter what, unless this person dies and is in the situation like it is with Trump, where they where he attempted to kill a former president. To me, all bets are off. They need to be able to know why. They need to be able to protect the president, former President Trump, and they need to be able to protect all the officials. Because again, too, what if there's something that allows them to now lead into a better understanding for the next campaign event, the next situation that comes up, rather than just being in the dark? I mean, I don't think it helps anybody for us just to not to be able to check that out. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I'm literally flabbergasted that we're still trying to find the motive over why this shooter did what he did. Now, there's a lot of things that came over pertaining about immigration and whatnot, but I feel like there's still more to the story. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section, guys, because I'm just really upset over every single thing that you hear. Trump should have been more protected, 100%.
Vice President Kamala Harris to announce her running mate in the next 24 hours ahead of her battleground state blitz with her VP pick, whoever that is. It does kick off in Philadelphia tomorrow. Now, she reportedly met with at least 3 finalists yesterday at her Naval Observatory home in D.C. That included Arizona Senator Mark Kelly, who some Democrats have been seen as pushing to send a tough signal on the border, and that would be her pick based on her week polling on the border. I want to bring in National Border Patrol Council Vice President Art Del Cueto. Art, you were with former President Donald Trump's running mate, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, at the border in Arizona last Thursday. I do want to hear about that tour and your thoughts, but let me ask you this. What is the purview and what is the view of Mark Kelly in Arizona? Is he strong enough to counteract Harris's weakness when it comes to her performance at the border?
Well, look, I've been down here in Arizona my entire life, and I can tell you, I've never met with Senator Kelly, to be honest. And when you look at the numbers from Arizona, it's led at the top nationwide for several years now when it comes to gotaways. So we have as much of a mess down here in Arizona as you see sometimes in Texas. So, we're just going to wait and see. But to be honest, I think it was telling when we did meet with J.D. Vance down on the border, especially it was in an area that's very notorious for these gotaways. It's very notorious for drug smuggling. And I think, just moving forward, we need someone that is willing to be tough and secure our borders for the long run, not just, when it's campaign season.
Well, he's also been a big advocate for gun control, certainly in the wake of the attempted killing of his wife, Gabby Giffords. And certainly they've got that foundation that to raise money for gun control. But I guess the bigger question here for Arizona voters in general is what they want to see. Do they want to see an economic story coming out of each of these candidates for president? Is it the border story? What is most important to them right now? Because Arizona is in play in the general election come November, sir.
Yep, it 100% is.
Honestly, it's got to be both, but you cannot ignore the immigration problems that Arizona has been seeing for a number of years nowadays. And, and even if you start talking about, the gun control, that's something I comment more on the immigration issue, but you got to wonder, look, when you've allowed so many individuals from so many different countries to enter our country, military-aged men, right? And then on top of that, you want to disarm Americans. That's just bad business, to be honest.
Yeah, well, certainly he did Kelly did. He flipped Martha McSally's seat. So he has strength in Arizona, but again, is he the right person for vice president? We're waiting to see.
Wow.
Let's talk about the border more now. The Department of Homeland Security says it's temporarily pausing that program that allowed up to 30,000 migrants from Cuba, from Haiti, Nicaragua, Venezuela to fly directly into the U.S. every month. There's this internal report that revealed significant amounts of fraud in the program among those sponsoring the applicants. Social security numbers, addresses, phone numbers for sponsors that were being used in some cases hundreds of times, meaning they were fake at the end of the day. And the Biden-Harris administration now has paused that program because of these reports of rampant fraud.
Guys, can you believe this? We're flying in illegals into the United States, bypassing the normal immigration laws, like how they're supposed to do it. And now that the Biden administration has been caught, that's whenever they stop the program. There are so many things that are messed up with what we are seeing in the political spectrum when it comes to our country and these politicians. I'm ready, honestly, to see a 100% overhaul.
Did we know about this before? Did you know about this before? And are you surprised that it's just coming to light?
I'm surprised I'm not surprised they're doing it now, obviously, because it's campaign season, as I've said. But look, the fraud has been happening, since this administration took over. You have had millions of individuals that have come across the border. They've claimed asylum. Everyone knows they don't have a true asylum claim, but they've released them. So, when you start looking at what they're doing now, it is just simply because of, their political message that they want to come across as, they've been trying to take care of the border and issues like that. If they were really concerned with fraud, they should be asked, what happens to the millions of military-age men that you've already allowed to enter the country claiming asylum when we know they don't have a true asylum claim? And where are they? That's an even bigger question. They're trying to push an agenda now to say, hey, we're stopping the flow. We know that there's issues there, so we're going to try to lower the numbers. But the question that you should ask this administration is, what happens to the millions you allowed in? And where are these millions that you allowed in? And they're not going to have an answer for that. So, when you start looking at what they're doing now, it's simply, for political reasons, not because they really care.
Well, let's stay with the politics then of all of this, because these Chinese migrants that are rushing to find a way to get to the U.S. southern border before the court doors close, that's a new report on the Wall Street Journal. And here's what the Journal writes. They say the possibility of former President Trump's return puts pressure on those fleeing life under Xi Jinping as Bolivia becomes the new jump-off point for that 7,000-mile trek. And then these Chinese migrants are now reportedly starting their journeys to the border from as far away as La Paz, Bolivia, because visas are offered on arrival. And remember, Ecuador, which has been a very popular access point, they suspended visa-free arrivals for the Chinese nationals last month.
Right, and you start seeing it when you actually look at the numbers. I know, we focus on one point, but when you start seeing what has been released by the Department of Homeland Security, they've shown that, individuals from over 160 different countries are coming across. And every time you see one rush in one area, you realize that a lot of these agents that are out there, they're having to be focused on transportation and focused on processing, and you have all these other individuals that are coming across. That's why, honestly, under this administration, we don't know how many people have come across.
That is true.
You can ask them. They don't know how many people are gotaways. They don't know how many people are not on the terrorist watch list, but they're involved with possible terrorist organizations. They just have no clue, because the message from day one was, come one, come all, ask for asylum, you'll get released. And that's what they...
Chat, look at this. 1.85 million known gotaways under Biden. I promise you, we have no clue as to how many of those are potential terrorists. How many of those may be wanting to cause harm to the United States in some form or fashion? And what's sad is that this number isn't thrown on the TV, on media, on everything to show that, look, the Biden administration needs to be held accountable to this. Kamala Harris needs to be held accountable to 1.85 million gotaways. This is sickening. It's a spit in the face to the American people. And yet, when we look at what's going to happen to Biden or Kamala Harris, unless you have somebody like Ted Cruz or Josh Hawley, they need to be held accountable for this. This is insane.
Been doing, and then to top it all off, they don't even know where any of these individuals truly are. So when you even hear about this fraud, you can ask them, do you know where the individuals you've released in, where they are, what housing units they're at, where, what cities they've been living at? And they don't have any idea under any of those circumstances. So now, so close to an election, it's just a little bit too late. And the American public is smart enough to figure out that it's only for political reasons.
How are Border Patrol officers doing now? I mean, we have seen in the past reports of suicide, divorce, alcoholism. I mean, these Border Patrol agents, not just in Arizona, but also in Texas in particular, really been suffering under the weight of their jobs. They want to do their job. They just don't have the resources. They don't have the technology they need. They're overwhelmed by the processing of these migrants. fingerprints. How is the mental health right now of these officers?
Look, so I speak with agents across the entire country, and I can tell you the morale has never been as low as it is now. And a lot of it is all the things that you just stated. But at the same time, agents feel, like they want to do more. It's insane. These agents want to do their job, and they realize that processing is part of their job. But it's frustrating when they're stuck in a processing center and they're listening to the radio chatter that groups are coming in and there's no one to respond. It's frustrating when they realize that when they finally go out to the field, they see footprints and garbage and everything else, knowing that groups traveled through there. And what makes it even more, demoralizing is you realize that under this administration, it's been very easy to come across, ask for asylum, and get released. So then you start thinking, how bad is the criminal background on these other individuals that don't even do that? They go through other areas because they don't even want to be apprehended or detected.
Artel Cueto,
This is so sad. Like, can you believe this? Like, how is it possible they want to try to throw the 14th Amendment on Trump for the January 6th issues, but yet nobody wants to say anything about Biden or Kamala Harris about allowing this just full invasion through the southern border? And not only that, with the foreign wars that we're dealing with. So right now, there was an attack, a suspected rocket attack on the Al-Assad air base. And this is all stemming from the Iran-Israel war, things like this. But this is where Americans were hurt through this suspected rocket attack, because what you're about to see is just all the Middle East is getting into chaos because we don't have a strong leader who can keep people in check. Check this out. Oh, wait, sorry. Check this out. Don't give me a...
Let's go to the region, Tel Aviv, and our correspondent Alex Hogan for the latest at this moment. Alex, good evening there in Tel Aviv.
Hi, good evening, Bill. Good afternoon to you. So we're following the breaking news about these 2 rockets fired at the Ain al-Assad air base in Iraq that houses some U.S. forces. We'll continue to follow that. But here in the region, a lot of tension as the country, as the whole Middle East is bracing for what could be an Iranian attack. A lot of questions as to specifically when that would take place. But Iran answering some of those questions by saying that it will happen and it will be severe. But let's take a look at this. This is the U.S. force in the Middle East, the current U.S. Navy assets as Washington ramps up its military might to
Looking at that map, you cannot tell me that the U.S. is not involved and is not going to be participating in this war. We are already in war. If anybody, it's very naive to say otherwise.
Support Israel's defense. Now, today, U.S. General Michael Kurilla, he's here in Israel, meeting with the country's chief of the general staff, talking security and talking strategy. And President Biden today just talked with Jordan's king, Abdullah, in efforts to decrease some of the rising tensions here in the region, as the State Department today says it does not believe that this conflict is inevitable, but it will prepare for all possibilities.
We are at a critical moment for the region, and it is important that all parties take steps over the coming days to refrain from escalation and calm tensions.
So we have seen days of escalation on Israel's northern front between the IDF and Hezbollah as countries around the world are urging their citizens to leave Lebanon. At the same time, the world is delivering medical aid. The World Food and Infrastructure is delivering 32 tons of aid, specifically trauma kits and things like that, that they can prepare to have hospitals fully staffed for any potential tension that boils out. So here in Israel, a lot of preparation underway with the country's defense minister telling troops that they need to be prepared to defend themselves and then quickly respond and fire back offensively. Bill.
Bit after 10 o'clock in the evening there in Israel. Alex, thanks. Back to you as events warrant there and we get more headlines.
This is nuts. So we're facing so much going on here in the United States. We got Secret Service that can't do their jobs. We got the wars breaking out with Israel, Iran. We still got Russia and Ukraine fighting, so that hasn't stopped. We got the invasion at the southern border. We still got inflation. We had the stock market crash this morning. Huge $1 trillion worth of losses. How in the world do people still want Kamala Harris or Joe Biden in office? I have no clue. Everything around us is in chaos right now. Everything around us is going to crap. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section, because I don't get it. I do want to say thank you to everybody that is watching. Thank you to all of our subscribers. If you're not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button, because we want to serve you every day with the top news. Thank you to all those that give a super chat and a donation to the channel. It's such a blessing to us, and it just means so much. And thank you to all of our members of the channel. Every day, guys, we're going to take care of y'all. We're going to make sure that you got the top news. We're going to pull all these sources together, so that way it's concise. You get the top news and you're informed. We love you. We thank you for being with us tonight. We will see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.